Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we try to take those really complex, sometimes confusing topics, the ones often wrapped up in myth, and just break them down, make them clear, digestible, and hopefully pretty engaging. And today, oh boy, are we diving into one of those. We're plunging into something that's sparked, endless curiosity, been shown in, let's say, wildly inaccurate ways, and honestly, it caused a whole lot of unnecessary pressure. We're talking about squirting or, female ejaculation, as it's sometimes called.
Okay.
If you've spent any time online or, let's be real, seen certain kinds of adult entertainment, you've probably seen squirting presented as this huge, spectacular, almost effortless geyser.
Yeah, the visuals are definitely dramatic.
Totally. It's often shown like it's a constant thing, the absolute peak marker of pleasure. And while, okay, it looks dramatic, in the real world, it's created this culture of, yes, fascination, absolutely, but also just a lot of unfair expectation,
Definitely. You hear people wondering.
Yeah, can I make this happen? For guys, maybe, or women thinking, is something wrong with me if it doesn't happen?
Exactly. That pressure is real.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Let's tackle those questions head on. Is it actually real? Is it just, pee? Is it some kind of super-orgasm? Or is it just a different biological thing? And can you really, achieve it, unlocking some video game high score?
Precisely. Our goal today is, well, let's put on our metaphorical lab coats, shall we? And really get into the science, the anatomy, the psychology behind it all. We're here to try and separate the, let's call them the fluid facts from the messy myths, give you a clear, totally shame-free understanding of what's actually going on. Because there's way more nuance here than most people think.
Okay.
And understanding it, actually, it can really enhance intimacy, I think, not diminish it.
Yeah.
Takes away that burden of, crazy expectations.
Right, okay. So before we even get near the how-to part, we need to, unpack the what, strip away some of the confusion, because for years it feels like the conversation about squirting was just stuck in this really simple, almost, childish binary. It's either pee or it's some kind of,
Magical pleasure nectar.
Exactly, magical pleasure nectar, as if those were the only two options.
It is interesting, isn't it, how scientific studies have actually shown a truth that's way more complex and, frankly, more fascinating than just that simple choice. The term squirting, well, it actually seems to cover two distinct things happening physiologically, sometimes even at the same time.
Two things. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So event number one is what people often call the gusher, or maybe more formally you'd hear coital incontinence.
Whoa, okay. Coital incontinence sounds a bit clinical, maybe a little scary.
It does sound clinical. And don't let the term scare you off. Well, it literally means, involuntary release. In this context, it's talking about that large volume of fluid. And yes, lab analyses confirm this fluid is, for the most part, urine, specifically a dilute form of urine from the bladder.
Oh, so it is urine, mostly.
It is mostly. It gets released because of really intense pressure on the pelvic floor muscles during deep arousal and orgasm. But it's crucial to understand it's not a bladder control problem in the usual sense. It's a unique response to intense sensation.
Okay, that distinction feels important. You said dilute urine. How do we deal with that immediate, maybe gross out factor some people might feel hearing urine?
That is such a key point, and it's where context is absolutely everything. This isn't the same as just needing to pee. First, the experience is different. The fluid itself is often clearer, maybe more odorless than typical urine. And crucially, the psychological experience of releasing it during intense pleasure during orgasm. That's profoundly different from just, emptying your bladder.
Right, the feeling is totally different.
Totally different. But anatomically speaking, yes, the source of that large volume is the bladder.
Got it. Okay, so that's event one, the gusher. What's event number two?
Okay, event number two is what we might call true female ejaculation. And this is, well, it's a very different thing. We're talking a much smaller amount of fluid here. Maybe a teaspoon, perhaps up to a tablespoon at most. And this fluid looks different too. It's usually described as thick and kind of milky white.
Okay, thick and milky white. So if the gusher is mostly dilute urine, what is this stuff? Is this the female semen idea people sometimes talk about?
That's a really good question, and it leads us straight to some important anatomy, specifically the Skene's glands.
Skene's glands. Okay, I've heard of those, sometimes called the female prostate.
Exactly, that's the informal term, yeah. They're small glands located on either side of the urethra, and structurally they are similar or homologous to the male prostate. And their job, they produce a fluid. This fluid contains something called PSA, prostate-specific antigen, which is, yes, the same biochemical marker you find in male semen. But, and this is critical, it contains absolutely no sperm.
Mm.
So it's biochemically similar in some ways, but functionally very different from male semen.
So, okay, let me see if I've got this. Squirting, as people use the term, could mean the large volume gusher, which is mostly dilute urine.
Correct.
Or it could mean this smaller amount of milky fluid from the Skene's glands, the true female ejaculate.
Yeah.
Or sometimes both happen together.
Precisely. Sometimes together, sometimes separately. And this is so important to stress for many, many women. Neither of these things ever happens. Yeah. Ever. And that is completely 100% normal.
All right. It's not a universal thing.
Not at all. It's just not part of every woman's unique physiology.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong, nothing to fix, nothing to worry about if it doesn't happen.
That explanation really does unpack a lot. It clears up so much mystery. Okay, so with this understanding of the fluids, the two types, how does that change how we think about the orgasm itself? Because that leads to the next big myth, right? This idea that a squirting orgasm is somehow better, stronger, more, I don't know, complete than one without any fluid.
Ah, yes, that one. And it's such a common and honestly quite a harmful misconception. Here's the critical insight. An orgasm, fundamentally, it's a neurological event. It's happening in your brain. It's that climax of pleasurable sensation, which then results in those rhythmic muscle contractions, throughout the body, pelvic floor especially.
Okay, brain event first.
Right. The release of fluid, whether it's the big gusher or the small ejaculate, that's a separate physiological response. It might happen alongside the neurological event, or it might not. They aren't intrinsically linked in terms of quality.
Can you give an analogy, maybe?
Yeah, think about a sneeze.
Okay.
You can have this huge, loud, dramatic sneeze that like shakes the whole room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people like that.
Or you could have a tiny, quiet little achu that's almost silent.
Okay.
The underlying biological reflex, the sneeze itself, is exactly the same. But the outward intensity, how much noise you make, how much stuff you propel outwards, that doesn't determine how intense the sensation of sneezing felt to you.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. The reflex is the same. The output varies.
Exactly. The quality isn't measured by the production.
That sneeze analogy is actually super helpful for breaking down the whole more is better idea. But okay, taking that a step further, does the actual sensation of releasing fluid ever add to the pleasure? Even if it's not about, like, the volume?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. While the amount of fluid doesn't equal the amount of pleasure, for sure, for many women who do experience it, the actual sensation of release can be intensely pleasurable. It can feel incredibly liberating, like a real physical letting go.
Okay, so the sensation itself can be part of the pleasure package for some.
For some, yes.
Yeah.
But it's not universal. Not at all. Many, many women will tell you their most mind-blowing, incredibly intense orgasms involve zero fluid release. Absolutely none.
Right.
And even for women who do squirt sometimes, they also say it doesn't happen every single time they orgasm.
Yeah.
And whether it happens or not, it truly doesn't seem to correlate with how intense or how good the orgasm felt.
So it really shifts the focus back to the internal experience, doesn't it? Not the outward show.
Exactly. It's like, taste in food or music. Orgasm intensity is incredibly personal, subjective. It's never about performance or, how much fluid you produced.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here? What does this all really mean?
The bottom line, I think, is this. Squirting is not the goal of sex. Pleasure is the goal. Connection is the goal. When we equate releasing fluid with how good or how successful the orgasm was, well, that just puts immense, unnecessary pressure on everybody involved.
Yeah, that performance anxiety thing again.
Totally. It transforms what should be about connection, about shared intimacy, into, a performance.
Right.
Or this hunt for some spectacular special effect instead of just focusing on the actual shared journey of pleasure.
Right.
And orgasm's quality. It's measured solely by how it feels to the person having it, period. Not by what it produces or, how much laundry it creates afterward.
Okay, fair point on the laundry. That's a really powerful way to reframe it. Takes the pressure right off, but let's be real. Even knowing all this, a lot of people listening are still going to ask, okay, but how can we make it happen? So if you are curious, if you want to explore this side of intimacy, what does all this science mean for you?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And look, the most crucial, absolutely foundational rule here is this. You cannot make it happen. There's no magic button. There's no guaranteed technique that will work every time. on command.
Right, it's a response, not a command. We said that earlier.
Exactly. It's a physiological response, not something you can just will into existence. The absolute best you can do, if it's part of someone's unique physiology, remember, is to create the ideal conditions, the right environment where it might happen. The key word here really needs to be exploration, not achievement.
Exploration, not achievement. I like that. Okay, so how do we explore? If a couple is curious, wants to try this in a, like you said, shame-free way, what's the practical guide? How do you create that right environment?
Okay, yeah, let's talk practicalities. If you and your partner are genuinely curious, here's a sort of step-by-step guide to creating those conditions. First thing, step 1, safety and preparation. Seriously. The number one psychological block is often that fear, right? The fear of making a mess, or, oh my God, did I just pee on my partner? Which, as we now know with the gusher type, is often kind of what's happening.
Yeah, knowing the science helps, but the feeling is still there.
Totally. So prepare. Put down a waterproof blanket, use some towels, maybe even a shower curtain if you want to be really safe.
Okay, practical prep. Makes sense.
And just as important, have an open conversation beforehand. Talk about it. Acknowledge that, hey, fluid might come out. And explicitly agree. That is totally okay if it does, no big deal. Removing that worry, that little voice saying, oops, don't do that. Honestly, that's half the battle. Because let's face it, who hasn't had an awkward moment like that? This is about making sure those moments feel like discovery, not embarrassment.
Good point. Less anxiety equals more relaxation.
Exactly. And one small practical tip, having the woman pee right before you start fooling around can sometimes help ease her mind too. Even if it doesn't actually prevent a release later, psychologically it can help her relax about it.
Got it. So emotional safety, practical prep. That's the foundation. What's next in the actual, experience?
Okay, step 2 is the engine. It's all about arousal, arousal, arousal.
Can't skip that part.
Cannot skip it. Squirting, if it happens, is a deep arousal phenomenon. You simply cannot get there from a cold start. It just won't happen. So this means extensive, enthusiastic, patient foreplay is absolutely non-negotiable. The goal is to get her entire body, and especially her brain, fully warmed up, fully engaged, totally immersed in pleasure.
So lots of everything she likes.
Everything she likes. Lots of clitoral stimulation, kissing, passionate touch, whatever truly gets her deeply aroused and feeling comfortable and connected. It's about building that profound level of excitement.
Okay, so deep arousal is essential. Then what? Is there a specific technique people talk about?
Yes. Step 3 is often about technique, specifically what's sometimes called the come hither motion. This focuses on stimulating that area we talked about, the Skene's glands, and the G-spot area, which are right there together on the front wall of the vagina.
Okay, the come hither. How does that work?
So the partner would insert 1 or maybe 2 fingers into the vagina with the palm facing upwards towards her belly button.
Palmok, got it.
Then they curl their fingers in that come hither or sort of beckoning motion. You're applying firm but steady rhythmic pressure onto that front wall, maybe about 1 to 2 inches inside.
From steady, rhythmic, not frantic rubbing.
Definitely not frantic rubbing. Think more like a deep, consistent, almost massage-like pressure. You're targeting those sensitive internal structures, the nerve endings around the Skene's glands, trying to maximize that neural stimulation.
Okay.
But, and this is really crucial, this internal stimulation usually needs to be combined with external clitoral stimulation.
Both at once.
Often, yes. Either with the other hand or maybe using a toy. Remember, the whole system is interconnected. It's rarely just one spot. A simultaneous approach often works best for building that really profound arousal needed.
That sounds, well, it sounds specific, almost technical, but it also sounds like it needs a lot of communication and paying attention between partners.
Oh, absolutely. Constant communication, checking in, responsiveness, it's paramount, which leads perfectly into step 4.
Okay, step 4, what happens then?
Step 4 is about the sensation, specifically the sensation of, oh my gosh, I have to pee.
Right, the critical moment you mentioned.
Exactly. Many, many women who are on the verge of squirting report this really intense, sudden feeling that is exactly like they're about to urinate right now. And this is where that deep-seated brain programming kicks in. Don't pee during sex. And the instinctive reaction for most women is to clench those pelvic floor muscles. Stop it from happening.
The body's trying to be polite.
Exactly. Polite, or just following years of social conditioning. But this is the hurdle to potentially squirt. She has to consciously override that instinct. She has to make the choice to relax, to let go, to trust that it's okay to release whatever wants to come out.
Wow, that takes incredible trust.
Immense trust. Trust in her partner, trust in the situation, a profound feeling of complete safety and acceptance is required.
So the partner's role here is huge.
Absolutely critical. The partner needs to be incredibly reassuring at this moment, whispering things like, "It's okay, let it go, don't hold back, you're safe." That can be immensely helpful. It gives her permission, in a way, to release that inhibition.
Yeah.
And if she can relax through that gotta pee sensation, then a fluid release may occur. Often it happens right alongside a really powerful, deeply satisfying orgasm.
Okay, so bringing this all home, let's summarize. Squirting. Definitely real,
Absolutely real.
but hugely misunderstood. Not something that happens to everyone.
Not at all universal correct.
And crucially, its presence or absence is absolutely not a measure of pleasure or skill or how good the sex was.
Precisely. It's so vital to understand that it is not a goal to be achieved. It's not a trophy. It is at best. Maybe think of it as a potential side effect. A side effect of creating an atmosphere of profound trust, really deep arousal, and open, uninhibited pleasure.
A side effect of pleasure, not the cause of it.
Exactly. The real secret to squirting, if there even is one, it isn't some complicated technique you have to master. It's actually about eliminating the pressure and the anxiety in the first place.
So connecting this back to the bigger picture for everyone listening.
Yeah, the takeaway is stop chasing the geyser. Seriously. Instead, focus on the connection you have with your partner. Focus on open communication. Focus on discovering and celebrating their pleasure in all its amazing, diverse, beautiful forms. That's where the real intimacy, the real satisfaction truly lies.
That's beautifully put, really well said. And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to sort of mull over. If you genuinely focus on creating that environment we talked about, one of really profound safety, deep mutual arousal, and just ecstatic, uninhibited shared pleasure, you might actually be surprised by what happens naturally. And if squirting doesn't happen, that is perfectly, absolutely fine, because you will still have shared an incredible, intimate, and deeply pleasurable experience together. And really, in the end, isn't that the only thing that truly matters?